Hey, how you guys doing today? It is me again, your favorite Texas trucker, and we are on this subject. I'm still here at home. I'm gonna be here at home pretty much through most of this series, if not all of it. But we are here at home, and we're asking the question: do you want to be an owner operator? Do you really want to be an owner operator? All right, so let's talk about expenses. In the previous two videos, we've talked about the fact that the truck takes all your money, the truck takes all your time. And so you've got to be able to make time for family, and you've got to be able to make time or make money to live off of, okay? Above and beyond what the truck is going to take from you. And so what you want to, you need to be asking these questions, and you need to be asking, and I'm putting it out there like this so that you can look and you can say, well, these are the issues. These are the issues that I have to face if I really want to become an owner operator. Okay, these are the things that I need to pay attention to. These are the things that I need to be aware of. I'm not telling you not to do it. Being an owner operator can be a very negative experience. Being an owner operator can also be a very positive experience. A lot of that depends on you. A lot of that depends on how you handle each situation, how you approach each situation. And if you go into this completely informed and you have an attack plan for dealing with this situation, any situation, whatever the situation may be, then you're already ahead of the curve. Okay, the problem comes in when you get this glorified view in your head that I'm going to come out here and I'm going to be an owner operator and it's all going to be roses and I'm going to make a ton of money and everything is just going to be awesome. I'm going to be rich in 6 months. I'm going to own a whole fleet of trucks in a year and all that stuff. And they're pipe dreams. Okay, they're not realistic. And so you get in here with this idea that you're just going to, make this fortune, and then it doesn't pan out. It doesn't work. Okay? And the reason is because you didn't ask these questions ahead of time. You weren't aware that these are issues that you come across ahead of time, and you didn't have a plan for dealing with it when it happens. Okay? So what I want to talk about right now is how do you know how much money that you need to make? Okay, well, there's actually a formula, and there's different ways to do it, and it all depends on how you approach problems, on how you figure out the formula on how much money do I need to make. Some people figure out the formula on a cent per mile basis. In other words, this is how much money I have to make at every mile in order for my truck to be profitable. Some of them figure it, like me, I figure it on a weekly basis. This is how much money I have to make per week in order to be profitable. Okay, some people even go further than that and they figure it out on a monthly basis. Well, this is how much money I have to make per month in order to be profitable. All right, there's not a lot of difference in figuring out what you have to make per week or per month other than the time frame. Okay, it's essentially the same process. But you still have to know, regardless of whether it's cent per mile or whether it's cost per week or whether it's cost per month, or whether it's even cost per year or cost biannually, you still have to know how much money you have to make in order to be profitable, because that gives you a baseline start to know, I can't take this load. I can't take this load because I'm not going to make enough money off of this load in order to be profitable. All right, a lot of people, they fall into this trap of saying, well, every load has to be X. Okay, we'll just say for the sake of argument that every load has got to be $1.75 a mile or higher, and I won't take any load that goes under $1.75 a mile. And they figure that because they say, well, my truck has to make X amount of money in order to be profitable, and then, or in order to break even, and then from that point on, I need to make this much money in order to take home a paycheck. And that's not necessarily a bad way of doing things. It's not necessarily a bad way of figuring things out. Somebody here is bothering me. I have my cat here, and he's down here bothering me. This is Mr. M, Mr. Miyagi. He's my cat. Anyway, That's not necessarily a bad way of figuring things, and it can work out. It can work out that way, regardless of how you plan to do it. So let's say cent per mile first, okay? So in order to figure out what you have to make in a cent per mile basis, you kind of have to know how many miles you're going to run in a given period of time. Typically, that time is a week. How many miles am I going to run in a week? And the problem with that is that you're guessing. You're guessing that you're going to run a certain amount of miles in a week. What if you don't get that many miles? Well, if you don't get that many miles, then you stand the chance of falling short of your goal. If you get more miles, then of course you're good to go. But you never know what miles you're going to get one week. One week you may get 2,000 miles. The next week you might get 2,500 miles. The next week you might get 1,500 miles. The next week you might get 3,000 miles. You know, I mean, that's just the way things go out here. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. And so, but the bottom line is before you can figure cent per miles, you have to figure out what your expenses are. So what I do is my expenses are broke down in fixed expenses, all right, that deal with my business fixed expenses, all right. Then I have fluctuating expenses or variable expenses, all right, and then I have personal expenses, which are also a fixed expense. Now, because I can't be profitable unless I can pay all of that, I take my fixed personal expenses and my fixed truck expenses, my business expenses, and I put them together, okay? And I do that right now because I'm still operating as a sole proprietorship. I'm not operating as an LLC. When I become an LLC, all that's going to change, okay? It's going to change in how I handle my bills, because at that point, the LLC handles the business end of it. I don't handle the business end of it anymore. The LLC handles the business end. What do you want? This cat's down here bothering me again. All right, and all I handle are my personal expenses, the same way I would handle if, say, I worked at Walmart. All right, if I worked at Walmart and I had a paycheck for Walmart, then I got to pay personal expenses out of Walmart, which is my rent or my mortgage, my car payment, my car insurance, my phone, my electricity, my water, my trash, you know, and whatnot. This damn cat won't leave me alone. All right. If because I'm operating as a sole proprietorship, and there's no difference between me as a person and me as a business, okay? Because sole proprietorship, you know, is just one expense, period. Then it doesn't matter if I put my, and I don't have a business account. All my stuff runs out of a personal account right now. So it doesn't matter if I put my personal expenses and my business expenses together, as long as I itemize each individual thing that I'm doing, okay? So right now, I take my personal expenses, which are $500 a week. I have $500 a week worth of personal expenses because I do things week by week. Right? I figure my break-even cost and my profit cost, my profit margin, based on a week by week basis. So I need to make $500 a week, okay? And I don't know why I don't have this memorized. I have to add it up every week, and I've added it up every week for a month and a half now, and I still don't have it fixed right now. All right, my truck is paid for. All right, when I was buying my truck, I've got something stuck in my tooth. Sorry. When I was buying a truck, my truck was $300 a week, $600 a month. Okay, and that's what I paid on my truck all the way up to the point that my truck was paid for. Then I had to finance the engine. Just before I paid my truck off, I had to finance my engine. So what they did is they rolled over the amount of money that I owed my truck into the amount they were going to loan me for my engine, and which means I had like $7,000 left in my payment, and I had a $15,000 in frame, so that brought me back up $22,000. It was $23,000 something after expenses. That also brought my payments from $350 a week up to $450 a week, and that's a phone call. I'll have to get it here after this video. All right, and so what I do is now I've got $450 a week for my truck. That's my fixed expenses, but I also have insurance, which is $147 a week, and then I have my trailer rental, which is $100 a week, and then I have my right now I've got plates, which, because those only come out in about a 10-week period, I think somewhere between a 7 and 10-week period. It's a fixed expense, but only a fixed expense for a short amount of time. Right now, I'm having to pay that. and it's like 150, somewhere between 150 and $175 a week. I don't remember what they're taking out. I'd have to go back and look at my settlement. All right, but so those are my fixed expenses. So those two come together. So now we've got $950, $100 would be $1,050, $147 would be $1,100, $1,200, and the $155, $1,355. We'll say $1,375. Those are all my fixed expenses. All right, so I have to make $1,375 a week just to break even. Okay, that's the minimum amount that I have to make. That's to break even. Now then you have variable expenses. And variable expenses are expenses that are going to change constantly. All right, they're always going to change. And essentially, my variable expense is fuel. Okay, fuel is a variable expense. So one week it may be this, one week it may be that. So we figure out, we have to kind of estimate or guesstimate based on the fuel mileage of my truck, which my truck right now gets about 6 miles per gallon, but 6.5 miles per gallon, but I figured at 6 miles per gallon. So I get 6 miles per gallon in my truck. I figure that I'm going to run on average 2,500 miles a week. Okay, so you take 2,500 miles a week, you divide that by 6 miles per gallon. That tells you how many gallons of fuel that you can expect to get in the coming week. Sometimes it may be more. I may do 2,800 miles. There's one week I did 4,200 miles. Some weeks it may be less, where you may only do 2,000 miles. But it gives you kind of a baseline to figure. Okay, and so for a baseline figure cost, you sit down and you say, okay, well my truck, and I don't have, I guess I do have a calculator. I got a calculator right here. Hold on one second. So at let's see here, at 2,500 miles divided by 6, it gives me 416.666667 gallons of fuel. All right, so you figure the average cost of fuel, I don't know, I'm just going to throw a number out there. We'll say $2.35. So you divide that by 2.35, and that gives you roughly, oh no, I'm sorry, you multiply that. My bad. So you multiply that by 2.35, and that's by roughly $979. I've rounded up to $1,000. So roughly $1,000 in variable expenses. Okay, and I know that that's going to be somewhere in the ballpark. So that means that now instead of what did I say earlier, $1,300? Is that what I said? We'll just say I said $1,300. Fuck, I don't know. We're adding $1,000 to that. $2,300 now is my gross. That's what I have to make just to break even. Anything over that is a bonus. Anything under that is a problem. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at right now. So unless you're willing to sit down and make that kind of, and then now you see why I was saying that if I take home $1,200 a week, that's kind of a bad thing for me, because I tend to take in right around 50% of what my gross is. Okay, so if I'm only taking home $1,200 a week, that means I'm only grossing $2,500 or so, $2,500 to $2,700. That's all I'm grossing, and if that's all I'm grossing in a week, I'm in bad shape. I should be grossing $5,000, $7,000 a week. Okay. Anyway, do you really want to be an owner-operator? Do you really want to have to track those kind of expenses? Do you really want to have to figure this out? And if you do want to figure it out, if it doesn't a problem for you to figure out, then now you know how. You got to take your basic expenses and break them down into an average cost per mile. We can go further with that, and I can take all those other fixed costs, right, that $1,300 or whatever it comes out to. I'd have to add it all up again and tell you. But that $1,300 plus that $1,000 in variable expenses, and that gives us a baseline rate per mile. If we divide all that by 2,500 miles a week, that gives me an idea of about what I have to make in order to operate my truck. All right, and that's my net income. Okay, now it's a whole different matter with gross income, because gross income is, it's a whole different deal. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, peace out. I'm going to catch this phone call real quick. We will be back.